Welcome, everyone. I don't think I can recall a time that I was on a call with this much brain power at one time. Oh my goodness, this is awesome for sure. We are so glad to see you all. I've had the chance to talk to everybody, but you have not had the treat to meet each other, and so we wanted to get everybody together today for a couple of reasons. One, you may have gone to some conferences where you kind of come in and out, you do your thing, and your thing stands alone. But our Summer Institute is designed to be really a tapestry. And we want folks to understand the different threads that everybody is bringing to the piece so that you can integrate some of those points with one another, and people will walk away feeling like they had not just a joyful experience, but a really integrated message and a shared vision, and you all are a part of that. First of all, we want to thank everybody for saying yes to us for July 19th and 20th. We're very excited about that. And let's do introductions first. And you don't need to talk yet about your plan for the Institute, but just so that people can link names and faces, just who you are and the organization that you represent. Michelle, why don't you start?
Thank you. Love to. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Michelle Sergina Pledger, and I'm the Director of Liberation at High Tech High's Graduate School of Education. I'm super excited to be on this journey with you. Ellen and Kathy, y'all have just been amazing throughout this whole lead up. So it's exciting to see everybody face to face virtually.
Yeah, well, thank you. Our hope is that we don't stop being awesome somewhere along the line. We're going to try to maintain this level.
July 21st.
Yes,
what we're shooting for.
Exactly. Emmy, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, I'm Emmy Beeson. I'm the Executive Director at Partnerships, and we're just thrilled to have all of you with us today.
Absolutely. And I think most of you have talked to me, so you know by process of elimination, if we're Kathy and Ellen, that I must be Ellen, this must be Kathy. And we've been in this work together for quite a while. Annalise.
Hi, everybody. I'm super thrilled to be here. It's nice to be able to connect with all of you. I'm Annalise Corbin. I'm President and CEO of the PAST Foundation. Here, we're based in Ohio, but work all over. So it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you. David.
I'm David Brown. I'm the Creative Director with Harmony Project, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you during the leadership event.
Absolutely. Mari.
Everyone, I'm the director of the Deeper Learning Hub at High Tech High Graduate School of Education. I'm really excited to be doing some work with you all.
Thank you. Lisa.
I'm Lisa Landy. I have the privilege of working with the other guy in the Qualia box, Dr. Russ Qualia. I'm the Director of International Programs for the Qualia Institute. So thanks for the invite.
You bet. I'm glad you and Russ both have a lot of supervision there. That's good. You can keep an eye on each other. Buddy.
Buddy Berry, Superintendent of Eminent Schools. I have gotten to know these ladies a little bit in the last year, and they will live up as advertised. They are terrific. So excited about year two.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, for sure. Steve?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm Steve Shapiro. I'm finishing up my 34th year as an educational practitioner, 31 of them in the classroom, and I'm also the host of Experience Matters podcast, which focuses on experiential and authentic learning.
Yeah, Steve's a member of our Institute Steering Committee, and we are grateful to have worked alongside him throughout the whole process. Russ.
I am Russ Qualia. I actually work for Lisa. I am more intimidated than I am excited to be on this call, quite frankly. I've been in the woods of Maine for the last 2 months, sugaring, as that is one of my things that I do. First time back in civilization and on my computer. So what could be better than to be with this crew?
Well, we're glad to have you. Dante.
I am Dante Wood Spikes of Empathize With Me LLC, and I am a professional educational nomad, which means I traveled everywhere I can go, learn everything I can learn, and I present that to audiences. Storytelling is my thing. I love to tell stories, and it really brings people together. And that's a little bit about who I am.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's what I think you could tell from the introductions. We want to engage everybody with a great deal of heart in this conference. Yes, it is about being challenging and informative and inspiring on a cognitive level. But we're dealing, as you certainly understand, with an audience of teachers and administrators who have been through 3 really, really tough years. And the people who walk through the door on July 19th are people who still believe in this profession, but some of them are hanging on with a little bit of desperation and a great deal of frustration. And so we feel like our job collectively is to really reconnect them with the joy of teaching, as you can see in one of the themes of the Institute, to have the courage to reimagine education, and to do everything they can to empower kids to change the world. And that last one is really important to us because we want the thread throughout the Institute to come back to empowering kids by honoring their voice and their dreams, but also by providing the sorts of authentic experiences that enable them to really exercise their voice and really test out their dreams. You know, we are our sweet spot in the field right now is really around authentic learning experiences and the power of doing things that are authentic, and kids finding a sense of agency and voice through those experiences. And so that means we had very good reasons for putting everybody on this screen today. You all do the stuff that we want to inspire more people to have the courage to do. And I think you'll be able to really feed off each other in a beautiful way. The first thing that I wanted to do in a call was just to ask those of you that were there last year to capture what was special for you about the event, just briefly. Buddy, I'm going to ask you first. You're coming back, and you said yes in a heartbeat. Why is that?
I thought that the spirit of the convention was infectious. I also think that your all's leadership, I think that what you summed it up better just now. It's not just a conference. You know, it is truly an event to try to both acknowledge the work that teachers are going through and have accomplished, but also going and trying to inspire them for what's next. And to say that, you know, to give them a little bit of a place of catching their breath, of saying, I'm not alone, and this is worth doing. And then also, which is, you know, to complicate it, here are some tools to maybe make that even easier for you as you enter the next year. And so I don't think anybody is doing what you all are doing, at least not as effectively. And whether you stumbled on it or if it was purposeful last year, either way it worked. And so huge honor to be back for year 2.
Well, thank you. I think we were purposeful and we stumbled. I think there was a lot of marvelous serendipity and good luck. And there was also some intentionality. And I hasten to say our planning committee is just a great group of people, and it was a very collective effort.
I think too, one of the things we really tried to work on, I mean, we do this in our work every day, is to push the notion of a shared vision. And so we worked really hard at the materials that went out ahead of time, any communication that went out ahead of time. And when people were there, that whether you were on the steering committee or you were a teacher or an administrator who just walked in the door, that everybody kind of had the shared vision of what it was we were trying to accomplish. And I love when Mari talks about she's in charge of deep learning. And that's what I think, we're all in that business. And, hats off to Steve that he has, 34 years. This is my 52nd year in education. So
I'm not nearly
You're-
that old, by the way.
you're a baby by my standards, but our experience has been, people who aren't in education or haven't experienced what you have experienced think that kids don't want to work hard, that if they work hard, they're going to be stressed and anxious. And our whole point was in authentic learning, kids are willing to have fun while doing something hard. And the anxiety comes from a lack of purpose, not from hard work. And so that shared vision, I mean, each one of you have been asked to be a part of that, because that's the way you live your life, is helping kids develop passion and a sense of purpose. And a lot of this bad stuff would go away if we could just continue to be intentional and provide that for kids. And teachers are willing to work hard if they feel a sense of purpose and a shared vision. So
Steve, how about a few words of what you think these folks ought to know about the spirit that we established last year?
Well, I mean, I went into education a long time ago because I always thought teachers seemed really happy, and lawyers, which might have been my second choice of career, always seemed really sad. And somehow, over the course of the time in education, state mandates and standardization and over testing and government control have sort of squeezed all that out. And what used to be this joyful profession, creative profession, place where people had ideas and were lit up and were connected to kids and has become this kind of like machine, this testing machine. And I feel like what we did last year was remind teachers, this can be a place of joy. This can be a place of creativity. This can be a place of spirit. And this can be a place where we change lives, not just try to bump a data point a little higher. And I think that really shone throughout the whole conference, was that we're about like getting excited about learning and not about counting numbers.
Annalise, what would you like to add?
Well, I'm going to throw out some kudos to, this is probably one of the best organized experiences I've ever participated in. And that
you guys
says
are making us really nervous here.
What if I blow it now?
No, I mean, seriously, lots of these things that we all collectively get invited to or involved in, sometimes, the implementation is not the best, especially something that started new. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the entire organization and organizing and planning team, because that part was so very, very well done. And so it made it really easy for all of the inspirational components, right? It made it really easy to come in and to be able to share the passion that the various presenters had, and everybody was super passionate about the work that they did, and you could find your voice and your space there, because organizationally it was so well done and so well crafted and thought out that it made it super, super easy. So that's what I would share. I mean, lots of kudos all around, but seriously, the organization made it super easy for us to come in and do our thing, whatever that thing happened to be, without having to worry about any of those other sort of components. So that was one of the big pieces. And then the other thing, I think, for me, the reason I was willing to come back is the follow through on the flip side, and not about from the conference, but from the participants. I shared earlier, actually, with Ellen and Steve today, I heard from so many teachers over the course of several months after that, asking follow-up or providing opportunity, or saying, hey, I saw another thing and it was related to something I heard you talking about. Have you seen this, or what do you think about that? And that doesn't happen all the time either, right? So folks were really, really engaged many, many months after. That's the other thing that made it an easy yes for me.
Thank you. Dante, you're coming back and we're so excited. And what motivated your return?
So I am all about feelings and, the experience that you get. And I can say that it felt very humane. It didn't feel robotic. it didn't feel like one of those conferences where I have to go and I'm like, oh goodness, it's another 6 hours, professional development, talking and being around people. We've been in those positions before. But it felt very inclusive and engaging. And it felt like I was a part of it versus just being there because it was something to do, or just because of the concepts that we were talking about. It felt like I was actually part of the process, even though, and that goes back to what Annalise has said about the planning process. It was very well organized and orchestrated to where, you went from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And that really keeps people engaged and paying attention and ready to do whatever it is that you want them to do if you put things together the right way. So y'all did a very good job with that. And I was like, I will definitely come back to be a part of it.
All right, thank you. Emmy, a couple of thoughts in transition from last year into this.
Well, this conversation has been really helpful for me, just like kind of hearing all of this together. But I think the thing that I would share is that I never planned a conference like that before in my life. And when we first said we were going to do this, in my mind, it was like, okay, all the systems, all the things, the checklists, right? Like this is all the logistics we're going to get done. And last year really wound up being such a wonderful learning experience for me too, because while I've done all kinds of other things, I watched the philosophy of our organization be the thing that also drove the planning of a conference. So when we talk about authentic learning for kids and we say, well, what is it that's of interest to you? Or what is it that's pulling on your heartstrings? What is it that you want to learn about? And then they become the investigators and the researchers, right? I watched the field do that. I watched us move through the authentic learning model in a conference and said, oh my gosh, this works all over the place. And so it just reinforced what we think about when we're working with leaders about systemic change. And I think the 2 points is one, we were concerned that would people even want to have this discussion last year? People were so burned out. And the thing we found is that I think, Kathy, you said this earlier about teachers, that people are burned out of doing stuff that doesn't matter to them, or stuff that is painful for them, or stuff that's not in their calling. People are not burned out about doing the things that like really speak to their heart. And then when we all came together, a particular principal who I've watched her career for years, even before she was in the principalship, she was there about half a day. And then she came running down the ramp into the auditorium to me and said, oh my gosh, I found my people. I finally found my people. I can do this. And then like game changer, right? So I'm excited to just keep being a part of that and learning like right alongside everybody else to do the work.
Thank you. Let's take a little time and I'm going to sort of describe the chronological flow across 2 days so that you can see how things will hopefully hook together. And I'm going to ask Russ to comment on his work in a second, but one of the things that happened to us right after last year's institute was over is that we started to read the reflection papers from the people who took the graduate course that accompanied the institute. And one of the themes that kept recurring was I came to believe that I can really do this and offer my kids more authentic learning opportunities, but I was also really tuned into the power of the student voices that I heard and the importance of awakening student voice more deliberately through authentic experience. And so we were hearing loud and clear this message about voice, voice, voice. And so in my head, I started to hear the voice of Russ Quaglia, who had spoken at an event for Kathy and me a number of years ago. And I just thought, I need to look at his work again. I think especially some of the later books are compelling and fit right in with what we're doing. And gosh, I wonder if we can get him to come. And a phone call occurred right before he faced, along with his family, the hurricane in Florida. And before he battened down the hatches, he said yes. And so opening keynote of day one will be Russ talking about the power of student voice and aspirations. Russ, do you want to comment a little bit about what you're thinking there?
Well, yes, and let me share, I am now more intimidated than ever. I had a series of goals for those 2 days, and now my only goal is not to frig it up. Because I don't want to have this conversation next year and say, well, if it wasn't for Russ, it would have been just as good as the first time. So a couple of points. One, yes, to commend you on your organization skills. Ellen, I got to tell you, the only person that writes to me more than you is my mother.
I love you almost as much.
Oh, well, thank you. My guess is some
Jewish mother here. That's
my guess is some days even more. And then I got nervous because I knew this call was coming up and saying, holy hell, is this conference not in July? Is it next month? Like, I've never planned this far ahead for anything in my life, including having children. But the notion, so then I said, I know Ellen's going to ask me, what am I going to talk about? So I go to your notes, Ellen, and this is what you told me. I'm going to touch on the power of both student voice and aspirations, starting with why each is important. I'm going to eliminate how educators can honor students' aspirations through authentic learning. I'm going to provide compelling impact data. I'm going to be inspirational through stories and anecdotes and make tools easily accessible. Well, I can only hope I do 2 out of 3 of those. No, I won't. I promise I will do them all. What I'm going to talk about, and it's interesting because my work's changed a little. Obviously, it's about voice and aspirations, but looking at it through the lens of purpose, because I think we've lost our purpose, quite frankly. I think we worry about kids with authentic learning. I'm not convinced we've got teachers that do authentic teaching. I'm going to challenge teachers that are there to let them know that the power of voice is real, not just for students, but for themselves. I want to leave them with a few questions. I want them to leave asking themselves, who am I? Where am I? Where am I going? And why am I going to go there? If I can couch that, particularly kicking off the session, if I can leave them with a series of questions that they constantly reflect on, after I get inspired by somebody, what does that mean for me? What does that mean where I am right now? And how's that going to impact where I want to go? And I'll do that within the context of obviously voice and aspirations. The notion for me, when I think about making learning irresistible, there's a few things that I think about. If we're going to make learning irresistible, it first needs to be relevant. The second thing is that students need to accept more responsibility for their voice and even understand they have one. And the third thing, quite frankly, if we're going to make learning irresistible, we better have teachers that are inspirational, that can get learning to be irresistible. So, I mean, there's a lot to kind of unpack in there in 40, 45 minutes. I just want to challenge the thinking. I think Lisa will attest to this, one of my goals in life is to make people's brains a little uncomfortable. Not in a mad way, but in an inspiring way, to say we need to think differently. We don't need more of the same. And I don't want to hear, oh, I wish it was the way it was before. Hell to the no. Well, like, why do we want that? Yeah. What else is out there? What can we do better? How can I take control? And when I talk about voice, I'm going to talk about teacher voice as well, because it's impossible for teachers to promote voice and understand voice if they don't even understand the power of their own voice yet. So and then going through your, I just want you to know I have proof that I copied all your bios and I read them 15 minutes ago. But the issue is I see how this can flow together, how all this needs to flow together. And then having Lisa there, obviously, to follow up and to build up this stuff will be stronger. So absolutely. So fingers crossed. What the hell? I've got 4 months to prep. This thing could be unbelievable.
You're ready. You're ready now. It's cool. But one of the reasons that I'm asking folks to give some impressions early on is that, like, right after Russ's opening keynote, the entire group of people, all however many hundred of us there are, will be in the huge field house of the building, and we'll do interactive activities for about 50 minutes that are meant to be a bridge from the opening to the rest of the Institute. And so, like, I'll grab one of the questions that you put in their heads and in their hearts at the end of your remarks, and that will be one of the opening conversations that people have in the field house. And folks will go from partner to partner and have a lot of different conversations. But, you know, we'll have, you know, I'll grab a question to anticipate Buddy's remarks in the next keynote. I'll grab something that is a preview of what Michelle's going to do, what Annalise is going to do. So, like, for all of you, as you're feeding us your descriptions, we'll draw threads from your descriptions so that in those interactive experiences in the field house, people get like a little taste of what to expect across the event. Okay.
One of the things too, I should have said early on is part of our intentionality is that this isn't just authentic learning, but it's also authentic leadership. And that has been a major focus of our organization, especially since Emmy joined us. And so, Russ, when you're talking about voice and making the teachers a little uncomfortable about choosing that, it's so important that we had as many administrators there last year, because teachers their voice can shout from the top of the school, but if they don't have an administrator that is making decisions that support that, it's not sustainable. And so that's really a major focus. I think that's one thing that's really, I like to think that's something that's different about our conference, that we encourage administrators to come and bring a team of teachers. And when I was reading the reflection papers, as Ellen said, they talked about voice and so forth, but they really also talked about how nice it was to be there with their administrator and have time to talk and plan. And I felt that I think those teachers who had their administrators there did feel like they had an opportunity to begin saying what was important.
Yeah.
And planning on that.
Absolutely. Lisa, do you want to comment on how your featured breakout support Russ's lead off?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear that myself, actually.
Obviously, there's no doubt that Dr. Russ will be engaging and that there will be plenty of joy and laughter in in the information that he presents. I also got to say, I really love that team approach and the focus on an administrator being involved in what's going on. That's just really exciting and awesome that that's part of your focus. The breakout session will build on what Dr. Russ presents in the keynote that he delivers. And we're really going to focus on this school voice process that we use that has 3 parts to it: listen, learn, and lead. And I love the comment, Dante, that you said about the feelings and about the connecting with the people. And I think that's something that a value that we share. And we're always looking to how can we marry this really powerful research that we have around voice with the human element of what does it really take for adults and students to work in partnership with each other to make learning irresistible, because it's not just one that can do it by themselves. I'm pretty convinced that if adults could solve the problems of education by themselves, we would have done it by now. And we've got to really engage students in a really meaningful way to be our critical partners in that effort. So the process that we'll focus on is helping us, both students and adults, it can't be one or the other, but helping us to both get more equipped at listening to each other, at learning from each other, and then finding meaningful ways to lead in partnership with one another. So there'll be a lot of activities. It will be a very engaging, active, packed session, and we'll hopefully just really then give them a lot of practical tools and strategies. Everything is intended that they could go back and replicate it in professional learning with teams at their school and with students that they teach. Anything you'd add, Russ?
Yeah, can I just say, you obviously you're spot on. One of the things that Lisa and the team, our team, has heard me rant about most recently is that when we do these kinds of things, the thoughts that we share and the learning can't just be for the moment. Like wowing people for 2 days means nothing to me. Getting them engaged, excited, that then they can take it to the next level. And hearing from some of you, and at least it sounds exactly that's what happened, which is great. But I am so sensitive to the fact that learning there can't be for the moment. It's got to be sustainable. We've got to start building some capacity somehow. That's why I love the administrators and teachers coming together. And I'll tell you the thing that I picked up that you haven't talked about yet, except it's there for me, is hearing all of you speak. I'm pretty much an anti-conference person, but what intrigues me about this is that this conference is not about the presenters, it's about the attendees. Because I've been to way too many conferences, and I participated in most of them, where the onus was on the presenter. It's like, wow, let's get excited, look who we have here. And I just get a different flavor for this. The very first time I talked to Ellen, this isn't about the presenters, it's about the attendees. And our job in this is to facilitate them, to inspire them to take that next level, not to wow them for 45 minutes, because a monkey can wow somebody for 45 minutes. It's how do I take that 45 minutes, take it to the next level where now I can start applying this information to people that weren't there with me. So again, to complement what Lisa says, I mean, that's our mindset going into these things.
Well,
I'll be quiet now, sorry.
No, you don't need to be quiet, but the thing that I wanted to reinforce, because I can't remember how much I addressed this when I talked with y'all individually, but our organization, when we undertook the Institute, we decided we will not do this as a standalone event. We will only do this as a catalyst to a year-round series of experiences and a year-round system of support. And so that is really what we are determined to do. So we'll take those things that emerge as strong priorities out of this institute and make sure that those are built into our programming throughout next school year and then leading into the institute of the following year. So we are all about that continued support and leadership for sure.
And one of the hashtags in our social media is the unconference.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody but us knows what we mean by that, but that's right in with what you were saying, Russ.
Okay, I'm going to keep us moving so that we finish within our hour. Buddy, you're coming back and gonna probably, I bet, reinforce a few of the ideas that people love from last year, but basically doing a different keynote. So what have you got in mind?
Yeah, no, I think it is, one is doing just a, kind of a brief kickoff of reviewing some of those concepts that we talked about last year. And then also what now, right? Like what does it look like? Now you've heard about it. Some of you have tried it. So where are you along the journey of innovating and personalizing and tech integrating? And then what does that look like in the midst of post-pandemic? And honestly, where a lot of people are now in survival mode, as opposed to, we've gone back to surviving instead of thriving, there's been parts of my career that felt like that. And so how do we say we've got to move beyond that, right? Like we even if we don't feel ready for that yet, our kids deserve it. And honestly, we deserve it. And so, so how do we bring some of that meaning back? So a little more of the same. And then I assume, and this isn't for this call, but also I assume you need us to do me to do some breakouts and all that. So we'll throw those in too, and maybe even set the table in there for what you could do as a deep dive. Wonderful.
Thank you. Okay. So again, going back to the chronology. So Russ leads off, then there's the interactive time that's got a lot of physical mobility to it in the field house. Then folks return to the Performing Arts Center and hear Buddy before lunch. After lunch is then when we begin the first series of breakouts, some of which are 2-hour experiential sessions, some of which are 1 hour more practitioner success stories or people in the trenches stories and so forth. So folks like Lisa and Mari and Dante be, active in that period right after lunch that day. Dante, just a thumbnail of what you think you might be doing.
I was muted. So both are just like my.
Why don't you, you can describe each of them very briefly if you want.
Okay, so this past year I was brought on as an ambassador for the Big Table that was founded by the Columbus Foundation. And one of the things that I thought about before we even discussed with each other was when we have the conversations, we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of the conversations. For those that aren't familiar with the Big Table, it's a national dialogue that started in Chicago, came to Columbus. In Columbus, we gather everyone to host conversations, join conversations, do whatever it is you want to do, but have an important conversation. While the conversations are happening, teachers are at school teaching. They don't get to be a part of the conversation. And statistically, that is the most common conversation that people discuss, but teachers aren't usually a part of it because they're at school. So we're going to bring that into the Summer Institute, and I'm going to be hosting a conversation, inviting the different administrators, teachers, educators, whoever to come learn about the Big Table and take our information and take it with you, or just give us what you need, what you think we should discuss and talk about. We are there to support you. And what I'm also thinking about doing last year, I did storytelling, working with young people and getting them to be encouraged and comfortable inside of the classroom. Once you give them space to speak and share how they feel or what they've been through, you have a brand new student. I'm thinking this year, I would probably want to focus on teachers figuring out who are they, what is their story, how can I connect my story to the student's story, and when our stories combine with each other, what can we create within this classroom together? So I'm thinking along those lines, because like a lot of us are saying, the pandemic hit, we've been through our own personal experiences. I think we need to hit that reset button. Like Barry said, we're surviving, not thriving. Let's get back to our own personal experiences, thoughts, and feelings, connect there, and then let's get back into the classroom and talk about the academics. No academics are going to be successful if teachers and students are in a room and they don't feel like they belong, or they don't feel like they have a voice, or they just don't feel themselves. We got to make sure that people get that.
That is perfect. And I can tell that you are all hearing the repeating threads, aren't you, of the emphasis on voice and experience for sure. Mari, give them an idea of where your stuff will plug in.
Yeah, so I have a couple of them. There's a 2-hour one on reflection as something that we want to develop in students. So the session's cultivating reflective students. And it's the idea that reflection should be happening throughout the learning experiences, as well as part of the demonstration of learning and student-led conferences and exhibitions of learning and in presentations of learning. And the idea behind it is that when students see themselves as leaders of their own learning with the agency to change the future, then a reflection is able to help them do that. And so like how the whole session is around how to develop students' reflection muscles in order to build student agency. So that's that piece. And then the other one is around SEL as an integral component to successful project-based learning and authentic learning. And so the theory behind that one is that students need to have the skills to work with other people. And so how do you develop those skills and not just put them in groups, but not actually teach them how to collaborate and empathize, and all of those pieces that actually make the authentic learning experiences possible require a lot of explicit instruction in social emotional learning. So like, how do you integrate that into those pieces?
All right, terrific. Thank you. Okay, so the breakout period goes for a couple hours after lunch, and then we come back into the Performing Arts Center, and there is a session that Annalise and Steve will co-facilitate. Annalise, why don't you describe that for them?
Sure, we're going to sort of take advantage of the fact that both Steve and I host podcasts. So I host Learning Unboxed, which is very educator and industry focused, and Steve hosts Experience Matters, which really taps into a lot of student voice and experience. And so we're sort of following up on last year's session where we had students, we brought them up on stage to sort of share out, we facilitated their sharing of their experiences, a really sort of reflective opportunity for the students to engage with everybody. This year, we wanted to sort of take that and grab pairs of teachers and students, right, who can talk about the authentic learning opportunities. And really sort of that way we could have the conference attendees not only get to hear a student voice, but also hear from practitioners who experience that student learning sort of epiphany and opportunity, right? To really sort of give it some authentic sort of space and really sort of drive it from the lens that we utilize when we are running our podcast program. So Steve, did I leave anything out? We're super excited about trying to figure out what those pairs are going to be and how much time we have to really sort of share out their stories, but that's sort of what we're thinking about doing as that piece. And then I know both Steve and I then have breakout sessions that will sort of follow on some of the sort of key pieces as well.
Terrific. Steve, do you want to add anything?
Just that, I hope that by the end, teachers will look at the folks on stage and say, that can be me.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what we're going for sure. Okay. So folks will leave the end of day one having had some experiences of their own, having been inspired by kids and teachers, being motivated by those of you that are first day folks, which one way or another is almost everybody on the screen, because even if you are not keynoting till the second day, you're doing some breakouts. So before we leave what Steve said, I just wanted to comment. It should be a goal that they say this could be me, but I think it's also, you might think of it as them thinking about when it was them, because every teacher we have ever worked with has had moments where they knew exactly what you were talking about and what it felt like, but they don't intentionally incorporate that more on a systemic basis. And so it's even getting them in touch with, when did you feel like that? Because it's not something necessarily out there that other people are doing. It's just, I haven't listened to what really mattered with kids and make sure I do it on a more consistent basis. Michelle and David, I'm coming to you all next. You've both been extremely patient. Michelle, talk a little bit about both your keynote and your breakout.
Sure. So the breakout session will pick up really nicely where Dr. Russ's question of where am I going from here? Because that session is called Freedom Dreaming 101. And it's really grounded in poet and educator Lucille Clifton's quote you've probably heard, we cannot create what we cannot imagine, right? So in order for us to live and lead this more liberatory life and have more liberatory classrooms, then we got to create space. And I love that the leaders will be there with the educators, but we need to create space to dream design that doesn't just stop at freedom dreaming, but actually leads to freedom doing, where we are creating systems within our classrooms and with our school sites that allow for collaborative action, loving accountability, and lasting freedom, not just for our young people, they are the priority, but we also want educators to be living in a space, right, that is free of oppressive systems and experiences. So it really, they're gonna have an opportunity to free their body as well, because we start with some like freeing their body, because you cannot free your mind without freeing your body first. So it's highly interactive. And it definitely leaves them with like, okay, this doesn't stop here. Here are some things you do at your site, like after you leave this conference, to keep the freedom dreams going. And it's been that session, no matter where I do it, if I do it virtually, in person. I just heard last week of someone who's like, I did it, like they finished the thing. They had this plan of wanting to have these little free libraries and this thing, and then they ended up manifesting it. And so that is like the beauty. I think, I can't remember, I don't know, we were talking about it earlier, just that beauty. Maybe it was Emmy. Anyway, one of y'all beautiful humans was saying like how exciting it is to hear back from the people after the conference, like, I did this thing. So it wasn't just this mountaintop high experience and then like you go on about your life. So that's the breakout sessions. I think I'm doing that same session both days.
Yeah.
And then for the keynote, I'm like Dr. Russ too, in that like, this is the most Zoom, like the lead up to this thing. It feels like we've been leading up to July for like a year. But I can tell you what the description that I sent Ellen and Kathy says. It says, evolution of an educator is a high energy interactive experience that will allow teachers, leaders, coaches, and beyond to rediscover, re-engage, and reimagine what's possible for the future of education. Infused with humor, poetry, service learning projects, student voice, and more, attendees will leave affirmed, inspired, and ready to shift their context in transformational ways. So I do feel that will happen. Now the nuts and bolts, I'm still working that out. I mean, it's more about like, you have so much, I know all this here, you have so many things, and it's just about like piecing together that just right recipe to meet the needs of these deserving attendees. So that's what I'm up to.
Well, and I
Michelle, Michelle, can I just tell you, if this all fails, you'd be a beautiful creative writer. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'd like you to write our stuff for sure. I love what you were talking about, the dreams. And I think, we haven't used that word to run through all of these sessions, but, I happen to live in an experience-rich environment where our kids have a lot of experiences that aren't necessarily because of the schools. I mean, if the schools didn't do anything, they can have a lot of dreams. But I grew up and taught in an area that was experience poor. And so I think that's why I was drawn to authentic instruction, because it's the one way that we can guarantee that kids, it's an equitable opportunity for kids to have experiences, and you can't have dreams without those authentic experiences. So I can't wait to hear your presentation.
Very exciting, very exciting. All right, so she's in the morning of the second day. Folks will then go through a set of breakout sessions, both before and after lunch. Before the closing session, there is a time for team planning. So people who are attending with their district colleagues get with their folks and reflect on their experience and some next steps. We'll have some other arrangements made for people who are coming not as part of the team, but we'll make sure they have a good reflection experience as well. And then everybody will return to the Performing Arts Center together to close out in the most exciting, unifying way possible. And it has honestly been our dream for over a year to end the Summer Institute with David Brown from Harmony Project. So David, talk about the closing a little bit.
Well, if that's been your dream, then girl, you need to dream bigger. Dream bigger. So look, first of all, Michelle, you teed me up. I mean, totally teed me up, because you said free your mind. And, what I'm focusing on that day is, the line of the In Vogue song is free your mind and the rest will follow. But I like to say free your voice and the song will follow. And that it's not really about an actual song. It's that you can't tell your story and you can't be a part of helping other people find their stories until you find your own voice. Mm-hmm. And I hope to draw a parallel between finding my voice through teachers that raised me and brought me into a safe place to where I could be in the classroom. On the playground, I was bullied, but in the classroom, I was celebrated. And I think that we have to look back and think about the teachers in our lives who were instrumental in giving us our voices today. And that we have to connect that then to say, we have more power than we think we have. And I'm one of the lucky people. I'm not a teacher. I get to come in and help the teachers. I get to come in with our programs and be that supplemental piece that maybe helps them take something to the next level if they don't have a strong admin in place. I have a lot of examples and stories that I'm going to share, but ultimately, what I'm going to do is do what I do with every program that we work with. And that is, and do what I've done when I travel, is I'm going to turn the room into a choir. And it doesn't matter if you can sing or not. It doesn't matter whether your voice sounds good or doesn't sound good. The whole point of it is that when we're all singing together and that when we are all in that same space, harmony doesn't exist with only one voice, and harmony doesn't exist with only one opinion. Harmony exists only when we have all of it in there. And even if there's dissonance within the harmony, it's still us moving toward that place. So the goal is to end with all of those people who've been focusing on their voices and thinking about the power of their voices, to really kind of give an example of what it means to then take that power, turn it outward, and not just think about it inside, and learn how to use it kind of collectively to empower others around you and inspire others around you, but also how to empower and inspire your own voice to get you through these tough times that we've been going through. So hopefully it'll be all of your dreams and more, Ellen.
I know it will. I know it will. And for those of you that are not from the Columbus area, if you get online and look at some videos and some background information about Harmony Project, you'll learn a lot more about the wonderful work that David and his colleagues do with that organization.
And
it's
David,
just amazing.
I'm assuming that the ABC special that they did on the Harmony Project, is that available online?
It's on Hulu. If you search on Hulu for Finding Harmony, you'll see John Legend's picture.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's recognizable about it is John Legend's picture.
It's terrific. Even if you are from Columbus, if you haven't watched that yet, it's worth it. But I want you to raise your hand if you agree with David that he's not a teacher. You're a teacher, David.
Well, but I mean, thank you, but I also pay tribute to the people who've actually done the work that it takes to actually be in the classroom and have the lesson plan. And I don't diminish our work by saying that it's not, educational teaching in the traditional sense. But I do believe that what we've been created to do is to be a complement to the people who are teaching, the people who are working with differently abled folks 24/7, the people who are in the prisons, who are there all day long with these men and women. We're able to come in and give them a breath, and we're able to hopefully breathe some life into the folks that they work with along the way and empower their voice. So hopefully we'll do that.
We have full faith in it for sure. You may remember from our individual conversations that I said to folks, those of you that are coming in from out of town, plan your travel early. We'll gladly cover the extra night's lodging. Those of you that can make arrangements to stay for the duration of the entire thing, now you know why you should try to experience the whole thing. And it will be our pleasure to make sure that the expenses are covered so that you can be here for as long as you want to be here.